The first wave of devourers emerged from hyperspace like a plague of living darkness. They were massive beyond comprehension, their forms shifting between matter and energy as they consumed the very fabric of space around them. But at their center rode something new and terrifying: the Anti-Guardians. These beings appeared almost human at first glance, but where Marcus and his fellow Guardians glowed with creative energy, the Anti-Guardians radiated entropy made conscious. Their eyes were voids that seemed to swallow light, and their presence made reality itself feel less stable. "All ships," Marcus broadcast through the quantum field, "remember the plan." "There is no plan. Trust your instincts, trust your creativity, and trust each other. Let chaos guide you." The response was immediate and beautiful. The combined fleet scattered in patterns that defied military logic. Some ships dove directly toward the largest devourers. Others began dancing in spirals that served no tactical purpose, and a few simply started spinning in place while firing their weapons in seemingly random directions. It was madness. It was art. It was exactly what the devourers couldn't comprehend. "What are they doing?" came the voice of one of the Anti-Guardians across the battlefield, their confusion rippling through space like a psychic shockwave. "These patterns serve no strategic purpose. They're inefficient, wasteful, counterproductive." Marcus smiled as he felt their confusion through his Guardian senses. The Anti-Guardians were trying to analyze the fleet's movements using logical frameworks, but there was no logic to analyze. The human ships were acting on pure inspiration, guided by individual creativity rather than collective strategy. The Chaos Engine itself began to move in ways that violated its own design specifications. Marcus didn't consciously control its movements. Instead, he let his subconscious mind interface with the ship's biomechanical systems. The vessel flowed through space like a living thing, its hull reshaping itself moment by moment based on artistic impulses rather than tactical needs. "Captain Chen," came Dr. Vasquez's voice from the science station, "our ship just grew a new weapons array that shouldn't be possible according to the blueprints. It's like the technology is improvising along with us." "That's exactly what's happening," Marcus replied, watching as other Guardian-class ships began sprouting impossible modifications. "The Valdari technology responds to conscious intent, and we're intending to create rather than destroy. The ships are becoming expressions of our creativity." Across the battlefield, the results were spectacular. A human destroyer began firing energy patterns that looked like abstract paintings, but somehow disrupted the Devourer's energy absorption abilities. A Valdari cruiser started singing, its biomechanical hull producing harmonics that made nearby Devourers lose cohesion. Most remarkably, some of the smaller human vessels began combining into larger structures that had never been designed, creating hybrid entities that existed somewhere between ship and organism. The Devourers, for the first time in their existence, were losing. "This is impossible," another Anti-Guardian transmitted, their mental voice cracking with something that might have been fear. "They're fighting without purpose, without goal, without reason. How can chaos be more effective than order?" Marcus felt a moment of pity for these beings. They had been created to understand consciousness, but only its destructive applications. They could comprehend the desire to consume, to conquer, to impose order through force. But they couldn't understand the human drive to create something beautiful simply because it was beautiful. "All Guardians," Marcus broadcast to his transformed colleagues, "it's time for the grand finale. Let's show them what happens when chaos and consciousness decide to dance together." The 12 other Guardians responded instantly, their ships converging not in any tactical formation, but in a pattern that resembled a three-dimensional mandala. Each vessel moved to the rhythm of its Guardian's heartbeat, creating a living sculpture of metal, energy, and pure creative will. As they moved together, something unprecedented happened. The quantum field surrounding each ship began to resonate, creating harmonics that affected the very structure of local spacetime. Reality became more fluid, more responsive to conscious intent. The Guardians weren't just fighting the Devourers anymore. They were rewriting the laws of physics in the immediate area. "Impossible," the lead Anti-Guardian screamed across multiple dimensions. "Matter cannot behave this way. Energy cannot be directed by mere thought. You are violating the fundamental order of the universe." "No," Marcus replied, his voice carrying across space through pure force of will. "We're revealing what the universe was always meant to be. Reality isn't a rigid set of rules. It's a collaborative art project between consciousness and possibility. The battle reached its crescendo as the Guardian formation completed its pattern. The ships had become nodes in a vast network that treated space itself as a medium for expression. Where traditional weapons had failed to permanently damage the Devourers, this new approach was succeeding by changing the very definition of what it meant to exist. The Devourers began to destabilize, their forms becoming less coherent, as the creative chaos around them made their entropy-based existence increasingly difficult to maintain. They were creatures of pure consumption, but the Guardians were creating an environment where consumption itself became an act of creation. One by one, the anti-Guardians fell silent as their rigid thought patterns couldn't adapt to a reality that refused to follow rules. They had been designed to be the perfect counter to conscious strategy, but they had no answer for conscious artistry. The largest devourer, a creature the size of a small moon, began to convulse as the creative energy around it reached critical mass. Its dark matter composition couldn't maintain stability in an environment where even the vacuum of space was alive with possibility. "All ships," Marcus commanded, feeling the moment of victory approaching. One final burst of pure creativity. Show them what it means to be conscious beings who choose to build rather than destroy. The response was overwhelming. Every human and Valdari vessel in the fleet simultaneously released their full creative potential. Ships that had been designed for war became instruments of art. Weapons that had been built to destroy began to create instead. The very concept of battle transformed into something closer to a cosmic symphony. The effect on the Devourers was immediate and total. Faced with a reality that prioritized creation over destruction, consciousness over entropy, their existence became fundamentally incompatible with local space-time. They didn't die so much as they became irrelevant, their dark matter forms dissolving back into the quantum foam from which all possibilities emerged. As the last of the anti-Guardians faded into nothingness, their final transmission carried a note of something that might have been understanding. "We see now," the voice whispered across the cosmos. "We were wrong. Consciousness was never meant to serve entropy. It was meant to serve beauty." Marcus felt a profound sadness for these beings who had discovered truth only in their final moments. But alongside the sadness was an overwhelming sense of joy and accomplishment. They had done more than save the galaxy from the Devourers. They had proven that creativity and consciousness were the most powerful forces in the universe. The combined fleet that assembled at the edge of human space was unlike anything in recorded history. Hundreds of human ships, from massive dreadnoughts to small scout vessels, hung in space alongside the crystalline forms of Valdari warships. But it was the new hybrid vessels that captured everyone's attention. Marcus stood on the bridge of the prototype ship Chaos Engine, a vessel that defied every principle of traditional engineering. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, adapting its shape based on quantum calculations that only a Guardian could understand. Human chaos guided Valdari technology, creating something that was more than the sum of its parts. "Status report," Marcus commanded, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated through the ship's biomechanical systems. "All human fleets report ready," came the response from Admiral Reeves aboard the flagship Defiance. 237 vessels, including 15 of the new Guardian-class ships. Queen Zephyr's voice followed immediately. "Valdari forces stand at full readiness. 400 vessels plus our mobile construction platforms. Captain Chen, the hybrid weapon systems are responding perfectly to Guardian interfaces." Marcus nodded, feeling the quantum patterns of the entire fleet through his enhanced senses. Each ship was connected to the others through fields that existed beyond normal space, creating a network that could respond faster than light-speed communication. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Dr. Vasquez, what's our status on the other Guardian candidates?" he asked. His former science officer, now serving as coordinator for the Guardian program, consulted her displays. "We have successfully transformed 12 other volunteers. The process is becoming more efficient as we understand the genetic markers better. Each Guardian can interface with approximately 20 ships simultaneously." Marcus felt a mixture of pride and sorrow at that news. 12 more humans had volunteered to undergo the transformation, knowing they would become something beyond their original species. Each one carried the same burden he did: immense power coupled with increasing isolation from normal humanity. "Any word from the outer sensor networks?" he asked. The response came from Lieutenant Webb, now serving as Fleet Communications Coordinator. Sensor Station Omega-7 detected gravitational anomalies 60 hours ago. Whatever's coming, it's massive. Computer models suggest a force at least 10 times larger than what we faced in the simulations. Through his guardian senses, Marcus could feel the approaching darkness like a weight pressing against reality itself. The Devourers weren't just coming in greater numbers. They had evolved, become something more organized and purposeful than the chaotic hunger they had been before. "Captain," called one of the other Guardians, Commander Lisa Park from the Guardian-class ship Probability Storm. "I'm detecting something unusual in the quantum field. It's like there's an echo of consciousness in the void, but it's wrong somehow. Inverted." Marcus extended his perception toward what Park had detected and immediately recoiled. She was right. There was consciousness out there, but it was the opposite of everything that defined human or Valdari thought. Where normal consciousness created order from chaos, this presence seemed to create chaos from order, unraveling the very fabric of structured thought. They've created anti-guardians, he realized with growing horror. Beings that can think and plan, but their thought processes are based on entropy rather than creation. They can predict our strategies because they understand consciousness, but they use that understanding to destroy rather than build. Queen Zephyr's image appeared on the main screen, her expression showing the same concern Marcus felt. "This is far worse than we anticipated. If they have developed strategic thinking, while maintaining their ability to consume energy, they may be unstoppable." "No," Marcus said firmly, drawing on the memories of ancient guardians that lived within his transformed mind. "There's always been a counter to every strategy, a solution to every problem. We just need to think beyond the patterns they can predict." Admiral Reeves cut into the conversation. "Captain Chen, we're receiving long-range transmissions from the outer colonies. The advanced scouts of whatever's coming have reached the Kepler system. The reports are disturbing." Marcus felt his enhanced heart sink as the data reached him through the quantum field. The images showed the Kepler colony, home to 50,000 humans in the process of being consumed. But this wasn't the random destruction they had expected. The Devourers were being selective, systematic. They consumed the industrial facilities first, then the defensive installations, leaving the population alive until the very end. "They're studying us," he realized, "learning how we think, how we respond to threats. Every human they encounter teaches them more about our psychology." Dr. Vasquez appeared on a secondary screen, her face pale with realization. "Captain, if they're learning from every encounter, then every battle we fight makes them stronger. Traditional military strategy becomes counterproductive." Marcus closed his eyes and extended his consciousness through the entire fleet, feeling the quantum signatures of every human and Valdari present. Each mind was unique, burning with its own pattern of thought and creativity. But together, they formed something larger than the sum of their parts. "Then we don't fight them traditionally," he said, opening his eyes with new determination. "We do something they can't learn from because it's never been done before." "What are you thinking?" Queen Zephira asked. Marcus began to smile, and the expression carried echoes of the chaos that had driven humanity to the stars. "We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to improvise, but not just tactically or strategically. We're going to improvise reality itself." He turned to face the combined fleet, his guardian powers allowing him to communicate directly with every consciousness present. "All ships, all personnel, listen carefully. What I'm about to propose violates every principle of military doctrine and several laws of physics. The Devourers can learn from our tactics, adapt to our weapons, and counter our strategies. But there's one thing they can't adapt to." He paused, feeling the attention of hundreds of thousands of beings focused on his words. "They can't adapt to something that doesn't make sense, even to us. I'm proposing we abandon all conventional tactics and instead fight using pure creativity. No battle plans, no coordinated strategies. Every ship, every guardian, every crew member acts on pure intuition and inspiration. We create chaos so complete that even we don't understand it." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Admiral Reeves spoke, her voice carrying a mixture of disbelief and growing excitement. "You're talking about turning the entire fleet into a work of improvised art. Fighting a war like a jazz performance where nobody knows what the next note will be." "Exactly," Marcus replied. "The Devourers understand consciousness, but they don't understand creativity. They can predict strategy, but they can't predict inspiration. We're going to fight them with the one thing in the universe that doesn't follow rules: the human imagination guided by Valdari technology. Through the quantum field, he felt the combined fleet beginning to understand. Humans and Valdari alike started to grasp the elegant madness of what he was proposing. They were going to save the galaxy by embracing the very chaos that had made them guardians in the first place. Fleet-wide communication, Marcus commanded. All ships prepare for the most unconventional battle in the history of warfare. We're about to show the universe what happens when chaos and technology dance together, in perfect harmony. The transformation chamber aboard Queen Zephyra's ship was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. The wall seemed alive, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that responded to his presence. Crystalline structures grew from the floor and ceiling, creating a web of energy that hummed with power beyond human understanding. The process will take approximately 6 hours, Zephyra explained, as Marcus lay down on what appeared to be a living platform. During this time, the dormant sequences in your DNA will activate, connecting your nervous system to quantum fields that your ancestors learned to manipulate. Dr. Vasquez monitored from a safe distance, her instruments recording everything. Captain, your vital signs are stable, but I'm seeing neural activity unlike anything in medical literature. It's as if your brain is creating entirely new pathways. Marcus tried to smile reassuringly, but the energy building around him made it difficult to focus on anything except the strange sensations flooding his body. Just make sure you document everything, Elena. If this goes wrong, maybe the next person will have better luck. It will not go wrong, Zephyra said with quiet confidence. Your genetic markers are stronger than any we've encountered. You are descended from some of the most powerful guardian lineages. As the transformation began, Marcus felt his consciousness expanding in ways that defied description. Suddenly he could sense the quantum fluctuations of every atom in the chamber. The ship's biomechanical systems revealed themselves as a living network of thought and energy. Most remarkably, he could feel the presence of every human within light years, their thoughts and emotions creating a symphony of chaotic creativity. My God, he whispered, his voice echoing strangely in the chamber. I can feel them all. Every human in the fleet, every colonist on the nearby stations. Their minds are like stars, each one unique and burning with possibility. Queen Zephyra nodded. That is the gift and burden of the Guardians. You perceive the quantum chaos that surrounds all conscious thought. With training, you will learn to harness it. The transformation continued, and Marcus felt his understanding of physics reshape itself. Energy and matter were revealed as different expressions of the same underlying chaos. Time itself became fluid, showing him glimpses of possible futures spreading out like branches on an infinite tree. In one future, he saw the Devourers reaching Earth, consuming everything in their path until only empty space remained. In another, he witnessed vast fleets of hybrid ships combining human creativity with Valdari technology, pushing back the darkness. But in most timelines he saw failure, defeat, the end of everything he held dear. The futures you see are not fixed. Zephyra's voice reached him across dimensions. They are probabilities changing with every choice made by every conscious being. This is why the Guardians were necessary. Only beings who could perceive the quantum nature of possibility could navigate the chaos needed to defeat an enemy that adapted to every predictable strategy. Hours passed. Though time felt meaningless in the chamber, Marcus watched his reflection in the crystalline surfaces change as the transformation progressed. His eyes began to show flecks of the same stellar light he'd seen in Zephyra's gaze. His hair darkened to a deep black that seemed to absorb light. Most notably, his hands began to glow with a soft energy that responded to his thoughts. Captain? Dr. Vasquez's voice carried excitement and concern in equal measure. Your DNA is rewriting itself in real time. I'm seeing gene expressions that shouldn't be possible. Sequences that seem to violate everything we know about biology. Because human biology was never meant to be separate from the quantum field, Zephyra explained. Your species was designed to bridge the gap between matter and energy, between order and chaos. The Devourers exist in a state of pure entropy, consuming everything ordered, but chaos guided by consciousness can create patterns they cannot predict or absorb. As the transformation neared completion, Marcus felt a presence touch his mind. It was vast and ancient, carrying the memories of countless guardians who had come before. He saw the first humans who had undergone this change. Primitive by current standards, but burning with an inner fire that made them gods among mortals. He witnessed the great battles of the previous war, massive conflicts that spanned centuries and involved technologies that bent reality itself. Human guardians working alongside Valdari engineers to create weapons that shouldn't exist, tactics that violated every law of physics except the fundamental rule that consciousness could impose order on chaos. But he also felt their sacrifices. Every guardian paid a price for their power. They lived longer than normal humans, but they became increasingly isolated from their original species. They could perceive wonders beyond imagination, but they lost the simple pleasures of unenhanced human experience. "The loneliness is the hardest part," said a voice in his mind that belonged to a guardian from millennia past. "You will save them all, but you will no longer be entirely one of them." "I understand," Marcus replied, though he wondered if he truly did. The transformation reached its peak, and Marcus felt his consciousness expand beyond the ship, beyond the star system, touching the quantum field that connected all matter and energy in the galaxy. For a brief moment he perceived the universe as it truly was, an infinite web of possibility, with consciousness as the force that collapsed potential into reality. Then, gradually his awareness contracted back to his transformed body. He opened his eyes to find Queen Zephyra and Dr. Vasquez watching him with mixtures of hope and awe. "How do you feel, Captain?" Vasquez asked, her instruments going wild as they tried to analyze his new biosignatures. Marcus sat up slowly, marveling at how different everything looked. He could see the quantum fluctuations around every object, the probability clouds that surrounded every decision his crew might make. Most importantly, he could sense something approaching from the void between stars. "I feel aware," he said finally, "and I can sense them, Elena. The Devourers. They're closer than we thought, and they're bringing something we didn't face before." Zephyra stepped forward urgently. "What do you mean?" Marcus closed his transformed eyes and extended his consciousness toward the approaching darkness. What he found there made his blood freeze despite his newfound powers. "They've learned from the last war," he said grimly. "They've created something new. Not just Devourers, but beings that can think, plan, strategize. They've developed their own version of consciousness, but one based on pure entropy rather than chaos. They're not just coming to consume us anymore." He opened his eyes, and the stellar light within them burned brighter. "They're coming to replace us, to show the universe that destruction is more powerful than creation, that entropy will always triumph over order. This isn't just a war for survival anymore. It's a war to determine the fundamental nature of reality itself." The quantum communicator buzzed to life with unprecedented urgency as Captain Chen's transmission reached Earth Command. Within hours, every major government, military leader, and scientific institution on Earth was in emergency session. The Horizon's Edge had become the most important ship in human space. Admiral Sarah Reeves, Supreme Commander of Earth's combined fleet, appeared on the main screen looking exhausted but determined. Behind her, Marcus could see the bustling activity of the command center as humanity's leaders grappled with the revelation that their entire history needed rewriting. "Captain Chen," the Admiral began, "I've reviewed your preliminary reports 3 times and I still can't quite believe it. You're telling us that we've been in contact with aliens before? That we fought in some galactic war thousands of years ago?" Marcus glanced at Queen Zephyra, who stood beside him in the communication room. She had requested to address Earth's leaders directly, claiming that time was running shorter than anyone realized. "Admiral, with respect, belief isn't necessary," Marcus replied. "The evidence is overwhelming. Dr. Vasquez has analyzed the genetic markers the Queen described. They're there, encoded in our DNA like a biological hard drive. The impulses that drove us to reach for the stars weren't just natural evolution." Queen Zephyra stepped forward, her presence commanding even through the transmission. "Admiral Reeves, if I may. Your fleets are impressive for such a young spacefaring civilization, but they will not be sufficient against what approaches. May I show you?" Without waiting for permission, Zephyra activated her crystalline device. The holographic display expanded beyond the ship's communication room, creating images that could be seen by everyone on the transmission. The hologram showed the edge of the galaxy, where space itself seemed to writhe and twist. Dark shapes moved through the void, but these weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were living darkness, vast creatures that consumed light and matter, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. "My God," whispered Dr. Chen Liu, Earth's leading xenobiologist, his face pale as he studied the creatures. "How big are they?" "The smallest are the size of your Earth's moon," Zephyra replied matter-of-factly. "The largest are planet-sized. They reproduce by consuming matter and energy, converting it into more of their kind. They have already consumed 47 star systems since breaking through our perimeter defenses." The room fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's systems. Admiral Reeves was the first to find her voice. "Queen Zephyra, you mentioned that our combined forces defeated them before. What's different this time? Why can't we do it again?" The Queen's expression grew grave. "Because we are not the same species we were 12,000 years ago. The Valdari have grown too orderly, too predictable. We can no longer generate the creative chaos that made our weapons effective, and humanity." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Humanity has evolved as well, but in ways we did not anticipate." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. "What do you mean?" "We're more advanced now, more technologically capable." "Yes, but you have also become more organized, more systematic in your thinking. Your chaos is still there, but it has been refined, channeled. The wild creativity that allowed your ancestors to think truly impossible thoughts has been domesticated." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying we might not be able to help you?" "I am saying," Zephyra replied carefully, "that we need to awaken something in your species that has been sleeping. The genetic memories we planted were not just historical records. They were keys designed to unlock humanity's full potential when the time came." Admiral Reeves leaned forward. "What kind of potential?" Instead of answering directly, Zephyra turned to Marcus. "Captain, would you be willing to undergo a simple procedure? It would activate the dormant sequences in your genetic code, allowing you to interface directly with Valdari technology. The process is safe, but the results might be overwhelming." Marcus looked around the room at his crew, these people who had trusted him to lead them into the unknown. Then he thought about Earth, about all the human colonies scattered across space, about children who deserve to grow up in a universe not consumed by darkness. "What exactly would happen to me?" "You would become what your ancestors were, what humanity was meant to be. A bridge between order and chaos, capable of wielding forces that neither species could handle alone. You would become a true guardian." The weight of the decision pressed down on Marcus like gravity from a collapsing star. Around him, his crew watched silently, understanding that whatever he chose would affect not just him, but possibly the entire human race. Dr. Vasquez broke the silence. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Queen's bio-readings. She's not telling us everything, but she's not lying either. The genetic sequences she mentioned are real, and they're active in every human I've tested. We all carry them." "Then why me specifically?" Marcus asked. "Because," Zephyra said softly, "the activation requires a willing sacrifice. The process will change you permanently. You will gain abilities beyond current human comprehension, but you will also lose something of your original humanity. You will become something new, something between our species." Admiral Reeves's voice cut through the tension. "Captain Chen, I'm not going to order you to do this, but I need you to know that every major government on Earth is watching this transmission. The President, the Global Council, everyone. They're waiting to see what humanity will choose when faced with the impossible." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of his daughter back on Earth, of the letter she sent describing her dreams of becoming an explorer like her father. He thought of all the children across human space who deserved the chance to have their own dreams. When he opened his eyes, his decision was clear. "I'll do it," he said simply. "When do we start?" Queen Zephyra's expression showed relief, pride, and something that might have been sorrow. "The transformation begins immediately, Captain. But first, you should know what we discovered about the Devourer's return. They are not simply following the same path as before." She activated her device again, showing a tactical display of the galaxy. Red markers indicated the Devourer's advance, but the pattern was wrong. Instead of moving randomly or following the galactic arms, they were heading directly toward one specific region. "They are coming straight for Earth," Zephyra announced. "They remember humanity from the last war, and this time, they intend to destroy the source of the chaos that defeated them before. They are coming to ensure that the Guardians never rise again." The conference room aboard the Horizon's Edge had never hosted anyone quite like Queen Zephyra. She sat across from Captain Chen, her royal bearing somehow making the standard-issue furniture look inadequate. Her two companions flanked her silently, their eyes constantly scanning the room as if memorizing every detail. "Guardians?" Marcus repeated, still trying to process what had happened in the docking bay. "Your Majesty, I think there's been some mistake. We're just explorers, scientists. We're not guarding anything." The Queen's expression was patient, almost maternal. "Captain, your species calls itself human, correct? From the third planet of a yellow star you call Sol? That's right. Then there is no mistake." Zephyra reached into her robes and withdrew a device that looked like crystallized starlight. As she activated it, holographic images filled the air above the table. "What I am about to show you has been known by only the highest councils of the Valdari for millennia." The hologram showed a vast spiral galaxy, then zoomed in to focus on a particular region. Marcus recognized it immediately as their local stellar neighborhood, though the star patterns were slightly different. "This image was recorded 12,000 Earth years ago," the Queen continued. "At that time, our two civilizations first made contact." Marcus felt his world shift. "That's impossible. 12,000 years ago, humans were barely developing agriculture. We had no space travel, no advanced technology." "No," Zephyra agreed softly. "You did not. But you had something far more valuable than technology. Captain Chen, you had something that we had lost long ago in our pursuit of perfection." The hologram changed, showing what appeared to be a massive space battle. Ships that resembled the Queen's vessel fought against something dark and writhing, creatures that seemed to devour light itself. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, her scientific mind racing. "What are those things?" "We called them the Devourers." One of the Queen's companions spoke for the first time, his voice carrying notes of ancient pain. "They came from the void between galaxies, consuming everything in their path. Worlds, stars, entire civilizations disappeared into their hunger. Our empire was vast then," Zephyra continued. "We had conquered death, mastered time and space, created wonders beyond imagination. We were gods among the stars, but against the Devourers all our power meant nothing. They fed on energy, on technology, on the very forces we had learned to command." The hologram showed the Valdari forces retreating, their magnificent ships fleeing before the advancing darkness. "We searched desperately for a weapon, something that could stand against them. Our scientists worked for centuries. Our warriors fought hopeless battles to buy time. And then, our scouts found a small blue world on the edge of nowhere." Marcus's breath caught as the hologram zoomed in on Earth, showing a planet covered in ice and snow, with small bands of humans huddled around fires. Primitive, barely sentient by our standards. But our sensors detected something incredible. These humans, these simple creatures struggling to survive in their ice age, they possessed something we had lost in our evolution toward perfection. "What?" Marcus asked, though part of him was beginning to understand. "Chaos," Zephyra said simply. "Beautiful, creative, unpredictable chaos. Your species thrived on uncertainty, adapted to impossible conditions, found solutions where there should be none. You were everything we had engineered out of ourselves in our quest for order and control." The Queen gestured, and the hologram showed Valdari ships landing on ancient Earth. "But these weren't invasion forces. They were diplomatic missions. We made contact with your tribes carefully, slowly. We learned your languages, studied your ways, and gradually, we understood that humanity was not just different from us. You were our opposite, our balance. Where we brought order, you brought innovation. Where we had certainty, you had dreams." Lieutenant Webb, who had been silent until now, found her voice. "You're saying our ancestors worked with you? Fought alongside you?" "More than that," Zephyra replied, her star-filled eyes seeming to glow brighter. "Together, we discovered something neither species could achieve alone. The Devourers fed on predictable energy patterns, but human creativity could generate truly random solutions. Valdari technology powered by human inspiration, created weapons the Devourers couldn't adapt to. The hologram showed incredible scenes of cooperation, primitive humans working alongside advanced aliens, their hands guiding technology that seemed to respond to thought itself. Great ships that combined crystalline Valdari design with chaotic human modifications that made no sense, but somehow worked perfectly. The war lasted 3,000 years, the Queen continued. But together we drove the Devourers back into the void. Victory came at a cost, though. The effort required humanity to scatter across the galaxy, and we Valdari retreated to rebuild our strength. Marcus stared at the images, his mind reeling. But if this is true, why don't we remember? Why isn't this in our history? Zephyra's expression grew sad. Because we asked you to forget. The knowledge of the Devourers was too dangerous for a young species to carry. We planted deep genetic memories instead, impulses that would guide your development. Your drive to explore, to question, to never accept limitations. These were gifts to ensure you would be ready when the time came. Ready for what? Dr. Vasquez asked, though her face showed she was beginning to understand. The Queen stood slowly, her companions rising with her. Outside the viewports, space itself seemed to shimmer, and Marcus realized more Valdari ships were arriving. Dozens of them, then hundreds. The Devourers have returned, Zephyra said quietly. Our sensors detected them 6 months ago, breaking through the barriers we constructed at the galaxy's edge. They are stronger now, more numerous, and this time we cannot drive them back. She turned to face Marcus directly, her ancient eyes holding depths of both hope and desperation. This time, Captain Chen, we must destroy them completely, and for that we need the Guardians. We need humanity. Captain Marcus Chen had seen many strange things during his 15 years exploring the Outer Rim territories, but nothing prepared him for the sight before him. The massive alien ship hung in space like a crystalline cathedral, its surface shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and dance in patterns his human eyes couldn't quite follow. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Sir, they're requesting permission to board," came the voice of his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Webb. Her usual calm demeanor showed cracks of nervousness. Their message is unusual. Marcus straightened in his captain's chair aboard the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. They had been mapping this uncharted system when the alien vessel appeared without warning, emerging from what looked like a tear in space itself. No hostile moves, no weapons charged, just a simple request to meet. What did they say exactly? Marcus asked, his hand instinctively moving to the emergency alert button. Sarah's fingers danced across her console, replaying the message. A voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English with an accent that sounded almost musical. "Greetings, children of Earth. I am Queen Zephyra of the Valdari Empire. I request an audience with your ship's commander. There is much we must discuss about your species and the ancient prophecies." The bridge fell silent. Ancient prophecies? Marcus had dealt with first contact situations before, but none had mentioned Earth specifically, and certainly none had spoken of prophecies. His science officer, Dr. Elena Vasquez, looked up from her readings with wide eyes. "Captain, their ship's energy readings are off the charts. Whatever technology they're using, it's centuries ahead of ours, maybe millennia." She paused, checking her instruments again. "But sir, there's something else. I'm detecting organic components integrated with their technology. It's like their ship is partially alive." Marcus felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. Standard protocol demanded he contact Earth Command before any formal first contact. But they were 6 months away from the nearest communication relay. Whatever choice he made here would echo through history. "How many are requesting to board?" he asked. "Just the Queen and 2 companions, sir. They're offering to come unarmed and submit to any security measures we deem necessary." The bridge crew looked to their captain, waiting. Marcus had climbed through the ranks by trusting his instincts. And right now, those instincts told him this moment was bigger than standard protocols. Something about the Queen's message felt important, urgent even. "Very well," he said finally. "Tell them they may board, but full security detail, and I want every sensor we have trained on that meeting, Dr. Vasquez. I need you there to monitor for any biological threats." As the alien shuttle approached their docking bay, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change forever. The Queen had spoken of prophecies involving humanity, but what could an advanced alien civilization possibly want with them? Humans were barely 100 years into space exploration. still struggling to establish colonies on nearby worlds. The docking bay pressurized with a soft hiss, and Marcus made his way down with his security team. Through the viewports, he could see the alien shuttle was unlike anything in human design. It seemed grown rather than built, with smooth curves and a surface that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. The airlock cycled, and Marcus held his breath. The first figure to emerge was tall and graceful, clearly humanoid but with skin that held a faint iridescent quality. Behind came two others, similar in appearance but somehow different in bearing. They moved with fluid precision, each step deliberate and meaningful. But it was the third figure that made Marcus's heart skip. Queen Zephyra was magnificent in a way that defied description. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with flowing silver hair that seemed to move independently of any breeze. Her eyes were the color of deep space, filled with stars that actually twinkled. She wore robes that shifted color like her ship's hull, and around her neck hung a pendant that pulsed with soft blue light. The queen stepped forward, her gaze sweeping across the assembled humans before settling on Marcus. For a moment that felt like eternity. She studied his face with an intensity that made him feel like she was reading his very soul. Then, to everyone's shock, Queen Zephyra of the mighty Valdari Empire slowly lowered herself to one knee before the human captain. The docking bay fell dead silent. Marcus felt his security team tense behind him, confused and alarmed by this unexpected gesture. Even the Queen's own companions seemed surprised, exchanging glances that suggested this wasn't planned. "Your Majesty," Marcus began, his voice catching slightly. "Please, there's no need to—" The Queen raised one elegant hand, silencing him gently. When she spoke, her voice carried across the bay with surprising warmth and something that sounded almost like relief. "Captain Chen," she said, and somehow she knew his name though they'd never met. "I kneel because finally, after 10,000 years of searching, we have found them. We have found the Guardians."